Patricia, I'm going to start with Patricia and let her tell you more about a little bit. I've told them, like, limit yourself because we have much conversation to go over in a casual way after she gives you a little intro. So I'm passing the baton to you, and I'll get a different mic.
Welcome, everybody. Patricia Ruiz Steele, and I wrote The Girl Immigrant, and I just wanted to tell you a little bit about a very short start, and then I'm going to read a little bit out of my book. I want to tell you a little bit about my abuelita because I was not raised with her, and so she was always a magical person in my life, and I didn't know I thought I knew a lot of information about her, and when I started researching the immigration story, I realized I knew very little. So I started to look in about 10 years ago, and I've come a long way to learn who she really was, and it even got more magical. So I wanted to read a little bit about the book. Some of the books that are written are based on our ancestors coming from Spain, going to Hawaii, etc. And the part that I want to read out of my book today is to explain a little bit about the people they left behind. And she missed her grandmother so much that I was able to piece together some of those feelings, and that's what I'll read quickly before we start the questions. This chapter is called The Leaving. The day had finally arrived, Augustina's living nightmare. There were 3 women, 4 men, and 9 children, the youngest still in diapers, the eldest on the brink of womanhood, 89 total from their pueblo in Fuentes Sauco. She squeezed the bridge of her nose and heaved a deep breath. She felt hollow, numb to her core, and drenched in sorrow. She memorized her dear sweet face of Crescencia as her daughter quietly surveyed the home she grew up in before walking into her mother's open arms. Madre, she whispered, achingly, devastated. Would she ever see her mother again? Caressing her mother's back, she kissed her neck and rocked, racked with guilt. Next, Augustina's son stood tall before her, his black felt hat squeezed firmly between his calloused fingers. Victorino's eyes glistened as he tossed it and wrapped his arms tightly around his mother and prayed to God he would indeed see her again. He'd given up asking her to go. They both knew she could never make the hard trip ahead of them, and they would not pay the 400 pesetas for the boat ticket since she was over 45. His heart jerked. She patted his back and kissed each of his weathered cheeks. She looked upward and stared into his deep brown eyes and nodded. He'd made the right decision, and she respected his commitment to attain a successful life. She must allow him to believe it, so she smiled when he responded to her message of understanding by nodding solemnly in return. Victorino picked up his hat and blindly made way for Juan and Lorenzo, who went through similar heart-wrenching goodbyes, and then the women took turns hugging their own goodbyes. They'd already had a tear-jerking leaving of their own families. Then the children swarmed around their abuela and uncles to be caught up in fierce hugs. Promises were made to never forget those that were left behind. Vaya con Dios, Agustina murmured and exhaled deeply. As she watched, her eyes had blinked against the countless tears. She squinted narrowly down the street at the edge of the town and the horizon beyond. She trailed off, drawing herself in. She kept trying to turn the clock back to the time before the talk of Hawaii had ripped their lives apart. Yet reality kept imposing itself. She dreaded the prospect of the quiet house without these children, the sharing of stories, and the sight of her sons coming in from the gardens. What was home without Victorino, Juan, Lorenzo, and Crescencia? She hunkered down into the rocker in front of the door on Calle San Salvador. She flicked through pages of their childhood in their mind, like a thirsty one at the fountain. She had been so blessed. When she turned her memories to her grandchildren, her breath caught and she swallowed hastily. Sometimes reading it even makes me cry. She pressed her hand to her chest, closed her eyes, and resumed rocking. She lied to herself for weeks before admitting the merits of leaving outweighed the fruitlessness of staying. Her eyes burned. Standing in the doorway, she looked at the long street, imagining dots on the horizon that were her children. Turning from the aching visualization, she covered her face with both hands to stifle the sobs that could not stop the torrent that followed.
Thanks, Patricia. Wow. Can you see, like, she's really captured? Just, can you imagine? I know we all imagine it. I mean, what they really went through like that. So I think you've really grabbed the emotions. Oh. Okay, so now we're going to hear just a few minutes from Ana as well. And she habla en español, and so you have to use your translation devices for Ana, porque she's come all the way from Jarandilla.
Buenos días, soy Ana María Rodríguez de Jarandilla de la Vera, descendiente de la familia Moreno Godoy y Berrocoso Núñez, que viajaron en el SS Ascot en 1913. Quería agradecer en primer lugar el trabajo realizado para el Congreso 2025. Sé bien lo que significa organizar un acontecimiento como este, pues yo participé activamente en el Congreso 2022 en Jarandilla de la Vera. Enhorabuena a todos. No podía olvidarme de mi prima Beverly, por esa acogida tan cariñosa. Prima, te quiero, mil gracias. Antes de empezar mi presentación, quiero decir que este libro es una promesa cumplida hacia la figura de mi abuela, para dar voz a su vida y a tantas personas que, como ella, formaron parte de una historia que no podemos olvidar, ocupando ese lugar que se merece en la memoria de nuestro pueblo. Primero Gibraltar y después Hawái. Un viaje maravilloso que sonaba a paraíso y que luego no lo fue. Emigrar no es cambiar solo de destino o de país, significa abandonar muchas cosas. Tu familia, tus raíces, tu hogar. Dejarlo todo con la esperanza de construir un futuro más digno para los tuyos y tus descendientes. Por eso, siempre retumbarán en mi cabeza esas palabras de Aurea, mi amada abuela. Hija mía, no te duermas, que tengo que contarte una historia. Y así empezó su relato. Yo, siendo tan solo una niña de 13 años, mi padre decidió que fuésemos a hacer las Américas para trabajar en las plantaciones de caña de azúcar en Hawái. El miedo, hija, se apoderó de mí. Temerosa, a la vez que ilusionada, emprendí el viaje hasta Gibraltar, acompañada de los míos. Allí cogeríamos un barco que nos llevaría al paraíso. Abuela, ¿qué te pasa? Nada, Ana, que me acuerdo de ese puerto infernal, sus olores a sal y mugre, cientos de sacos y maletas dibujaban un paisaje gris, triste y a la vez tan desolador junto a esa masa de gente apiñada con un solo compás, llantos y lamentos. El pulso de mi abuela se aceleró y su respiración se agitaba cada vez más. Tomó con fuerza mis pequeñas manos sin soltarlas para hacerme parte de ella, en un deseo de conexión profunda e infinita que diera sentido a su historia, nuestra historia. Al abrir este libro, nos adentramos en un viaje emocional que nos conecta con nuestras propias raíces, recordándonos que aunque el tiempo pase y el amor y la lucha de quienes nos precedieron. Perduran en cada uno de nosotros. Niña de pelo rojo, abuela, gracias por enseñarnos tu camino y que la verdadera fortaleza reside en el amor que se entrega sin medida. En cada página, tu legado se convierte en un faro que ilumina nuestro camino, recordándonos que en la historia de cada familia siempre habrá una Aurea dispuesta a darlo todo por los suyos. Os presento la niña de pelo rojo.
And I should apologize because I didn't make it really clear the names of their books. So, La Niña de Pelo Rojo, you can see that she has pelo rojo. There's the little girl with red hair, yes? And Patricia is actually prolific. She has 19 books. If you go look her up on Amazon, 19. And so she has a few of them in the, yeah, that's like amazing. And she has a few on the table in the back as well. And the one that she's really highlighting today is, it's your first that was about the family traveling? The girl immigrant? Yeah, the girl immigrant. Was it your first about the viaje? Okay, yeah. So that's what she's highlighting today. So I'm curious too, and I have a novel too. It's just not physically in my hands just yet. I'm doing that whole query thing for publishers, but I know for mine, it's all those sugar cherries at the moment. I remember why I really decided I had to write this book. It was, I met my cousins in Spain, and when they start telling you about the story, oh, your great-grandmother, she was, then you get hooked. So I'm curious for you, for each of the authors, what was the thing that really started you on your journey? I've got to write this story. So, Ana, you can start and then hand to Patricia.
Pues yo decidí escribir La niña de pelo rojo. Para mí era un reto personal. Fue la promesa que le hice a mi abuela antes de morir, que yo contaría su historia, la historia de nuestra familia y la historia de todos los extremeños que se marcharon. Me gustaría recalcar también la figura de Aurea, como una mujer fuerte, con temperamento, pero cariñosa para los suyos, y que siempre estuvo rodeada de hombres, y la tocó vivir en una época y en una historia de nuestro país que estaban sometidas a la voluntad de los hombres. El primer hombre fue su padre.
That I wanted to write the story, The Girl Immigrant, is because when I first started my research and learned about the migration, I decided to further go into the story. So I went to the Library of Congress to find all the books I could find that explained the migration. And when I got there, I only found one tiny book about a Lopez family. And I was very disappointed that there wasn't more information, and I decided then and there that I was going to write about my own abuelita, and she would be in the Library of Congress, and she is. So I'm very, very happy about that. But I wanted to know more about my abuelita and why she came and get to know who she really was. So that's why I wanted to write the book.
Thanks. And you notice that there's a theme in here that they were both writing about their grandmothers. And for many of us that are in the room, it was our grandparents that were sharing the stories to us, right? And so, Patricia, if you're still on, I'm thinking about that because you said, I started my research and that's when I really had to. So there was a movie, a video made of this. This is the Pasaje a Kauai. And so tell us a little bit about that. How did you get that going? And tell us about that amazing experience.
Miguel Alba saw that I was on Facebook on the Spanish Hawaiian Facebook site saw that I was coming to Spain, and so I had never met him, but of course, we all know who everyone is from that wonderful Facebook page. And when I was a couple of days before I flew out, he asked if he could please come pick me up, and I thought, wow, how nice. And then as I was getting on the plane, he said, oh, by the way, I have a friend who wants to meet you also, and he's in a movie. He's doing movies. And I thought, oh, all right. I mean, I didn't know any of these people. So when I got off the plane, and he had my name up, so I followed him, and I was getting ready to go down the area that led us to the car, and he stopped me like our mothers did in the old days. Well, I'm older than you are, but you know how they stopped you, that was our kind of a seatbelt. He stopped me like that and pointed, and down at the end of the area was his filmmaker, the producer, and the audio man. And I realized that I was right in the middle of the documentary. And from then on, it was like a roller coaster, wonderful journey. That's how.
That's a must-see. You've got to see that video.
Where is she, Bev? I can hear your voice, Bev. There she is. So that was another thing you mentioned in there is the research. So the movie, the documentary was documenting your own research process.
A lot of it, yes.
Yeah. And what else did you do for research? And then I'm curious about Ana as well.
What else did I do for Well, I went to Spain and lived for 3 months so that I could go through all the villages of my grandparents, so I could walk through Fuentesauco, where my grandmother lived and left. And that was just very emotional. And I went to all the villages that I read on the document, her parents, her grandmother's town, her grandfather's town, and then I went to Toro, near Madrid, and I fell in love and wanted to stay. But in all that information that I put together is when I was able to come home and actually write the book, and felt like I was really Spanish at last. Yeah.
And Ana, I know you said that your abuelita, we like to call our abuelas abuelita, of course, term of endearment. Voy a intentar hablar en español. Entonces me ha dicho que era tu abuelita que ha descubierto, sí, I'm not going to stop when I say it wrong, Spanish speakers. Tu abuelita ha descubierto el viaje hasta Gibraltar.
Sí.
Dimos un poco de eso.
Mi abuela era la mayor de 5 hermanas, tenía 13 añitos y junto con su tío, el hermano de su madre y su padre, más fuerte, decidieron hacer el viaje con 66 jarandillanos más hasta Gibraltar. Cuando llegó a Gibraltar, lo hicieron en tren. Cuando llegaron a Gibraltar, mi abuelo en el último momento vio el SS Ascot y decidió que no pondría en peligro la vida de su hija. Entonces, los demás partieron, incluido el hermano de mi bisabuela, Eugenio Moreno Godoy, y su mujer, Emilia Berrocoso Núñez. Con lo cual, mi abuela y su padre se quedaron solos en el puerto, solos, sin dinero, sin nada, en ese puerto viendo el Ascot cómo se alejaba, con 2 maletas y sin nada. Buscaron un trabajo por todos sitios para poder volver a Jarandilla. Entonces empezaron a trabajar en casa de un jefe naviero. Mi abuela empezó como niñera de la niña del ama del viñedo, y mi abuelo empezó a poner ese famoso huerto que se pone en toda la vera, de pimiento, de tomates. Encontraron trabajo durante 6 meses y decidieron no gastarse nada del dinero ahorrado y se vinieron andando desde Gibraltar.
Are you all getting the translation for that? Okay, Spanish speakers, it's very low for them, okay? Tiene que hablar más fuerte
Vale.
la próxima vez. Y if there are Spanish speakers in the room that will do it more justice than I will, I'll translate in my feeble way. So her grandmother and the grandmother's parents, the great-grandparents, right, or great-grandfather at least, they went only to Gibraltar. They went to Gibraltar and they were going to get on the ship. But él tenía miedo.
Sí, tenía mucho miedo.
He was afraid to get on the ship, and so they changed their mind. And so he and her grandmother stayed there in Gibraltar, but like many, I think they had probably sold everything. They didn't have money. And so they had to stay there and look for work. So they stayed in Gibraltar and worked for 6 months, just like our families did, probably in the fields, and worked in the huertos, in the fields, and until they got enough money to be able to go home. So, and home is Jarandilla. Yeah, there's a whole faction of Jarandillaeros. I can't say it. All those. Yeah, Steve knows that. He's the one that does all the research for us. Okay, so good. Thank you for sharing that. So let's see. Another thing I've been curious is, I know, Patricia, you had told me that your grandmother, and you call her abuelita también, also, she told you stories, but did she tell you the majority of the stories, or did you get stories from other people in the family?
She told me a lot of stories, but so did my father and some of my aunts and uncles. My Uncle Tony was the one that it was explaining to me about that they had taken the train to Sevilla and then another boat all the way down and then walked for 12 days to get to the Gibraltar. So Abuelita told me all the fun things. Whenever I asked her about anything of the hardships that went on, I had to kind of pull it out of her because I think that they just did not want to talk about it. It was so sad, and the thought of leaving was bad enough, but I did finally get a lot of that from what she didn't say, with facial features, those connections that you can feel what people are talking about. And so I just enlarged on that and talked to the family and talked to a lot of the family in Spain that I found, and they explained a little bit about that time also.
Ana, your abuelita, ella ha dicho muchas historias, ¿sí? Pero también tú estabas muy cerquita a ella, de corazón.
Sí, mucho.
¿Vale? Y dígame un poco de cuando empezaste escribiendo, ¿cómo lo hizo? ¿Cómo lo hiciste?
Pues era una deuda que yo tenía con mi abuela. Entonces, al empezar este proyecto de encontrar a familiares de mi pueblo y encontrar familiares de toda la Vera que viajaron en el SS Scott, en el Wicherton, yo decidí que era el momento ideal para yo empezar mi libro. Yo tenía que cumplir esa promesa que tenía pendiente hacia ella y hacia todos los extremeños y hacia mi pueblo.
I think she's saying that she made a promise to her grandmother, so she was getting these stories from her. She was very close to her grandmother growing up, and she promised her grandmother that she would capture the story and share it. And so that's why she decided to write the book, and that's how she began writing the book, is collecting those stories and writing them down. So I'm going to let the audience ask a couple of questions. And so I know we are short on time, and I want to make sure, I know we might be standing between you and lunch. So if you have a couple of questions, there are some, there she is, our runner. Yeah, Kristen has a mic, and Bev has a mic, and they'll run around and make sure that we can hear your question. You can ask anything of the authors, and then we'll close down with one kind of comment from them before we go.
Hola, ¿en Spanish or English?
Both, if
Bueno.
you can. That'd be great.
Bueno, en español. Ana, muchas gracias por tu testimonio. Es un ejemplo para muchos. Y mi pregunta como historiador es, ¿cómo consigues reunir toda la información y combinarla, mezclarla muy bien. He leído tu novela en el viaje, en el largo viaje, con la emoción, con los testimonios, con la añoranza.
A ver, Paco, tú me conoces un poquito. Estamos en el mismo barco, no en el SS Ascot, pero estamos en el mismo barco. Entonces, yo empecé este proyecto con Manuel Trinidad y su proyecto Arpalión, y me mandó un listado de pasajeros. Y como yo tenía pendiente esa deuda con mi abuela, acepté ese listado y empecé a buscar casa por casa de los que yo creía que eran familiares de los que se habían marchado por sus apellidos. Aparte de eso, yo me fui a un archivo parroquial que tiene Jarandilla del 1560 aproximadamente, que tenemos una joya en Jarandilla y en Extremadura. Entonces empecé por ahí. Como yo tenía el listado con esos apellidos, había que montar el puzzle. Empezamos poquito a poco. Yo mandaba toda la información al antropólogo. El antropólogo, digamos que la cuadraba, y llegó un extremo tan grande que me decía que no le mandase tanta información, porque era demasiada información la que yo le mandaba. Pero es que yo tenía tanta ilusión con encontrar a los familiares de los míos que me soñaba por la noche con los apellidos. Mi mente me hacía el listado de los apellidos. Era una cosa soberbia, pero no solo eso. Cuando yo ya empecé a encontrar a familiares, esos familiares iban a mi casa ya ellos a buscarme para que yo les diese a ellos la información de los que se habían marchado. Era un cúmulo de emociones muy grande. Yo lo he pasado muy bien.
My question's real quick. It's for Ana. I was just wondering, are there very many redheads in Spain?
Te voy a contar un secreto. Yo soy una persona que digo siempre que el calma existe. Porque con esto de mi abuela, yo cuando cogía el bolígrafo, primero bolígrafo, luego ordenador, para escribir, el bolígrafo a veces iba solo. Y eso es verdad. Mi abuela era la niña de pelo rojo, porque ella era muy pelirroja. Tuvo 6 hijos y ninguno de los hijos, sus nietos, bisnietos, yo tengo un árbol de más de 180 o 200 parientes directos de Aurea, de mi abuela. Nadie es pelirrojo excepto mi hija. Nadie. ¿Por qué? Porque el calma existe. Y mi abuela me dio ese regalo para mí, que mi hija fuera pelirroja. Pero cuando yo tenía el libro calentito en las cajas para exponerle, para hacer mi presentación, nació mi segunda nieta. Y mi segunda nieta, cuando salió mi hija del paritorio, me dijeron, es pelirroja. Entonces, mi abuela se saltó mi genética, porque esto es tinte. Mi padre me dio el gen a mí, yo se lo he dado a mi hija, y mi hija se lo ha dado a Gala, mi nieta, la tercera niña de pelo rojo.
One of the things I wanted to mention is in Pasaje, Hawaii, I was delighted to be able to read from my book through the documentary on the ship and different places. It was really lovely to narrate from my book. So that was very, very special. And my family all enjoyed that. And I want to say that Stephen Alonso even took a time to drive from Sacramento to Woodland in order to show the documentary to my Aunt Millie in Woodland. And he didn't even know her, just because we're good friends and he was in it and he loved it too. Okay.
¿Hay algo más para decir? No, ¿está bien?
Yo me gustaría mandar un abrazo desde aquí a todos los descendientes de Jarandilla, los Cañadas,
She wants to give a hug to everybody from Jarandilla, so make sure you
Beverly,
get a hug from her today.
Beverly,
There's the-
los Berrocoso,
Look at the Jarandillas.
Beverly, Berrocoso, Débora, todos.
Oh, fantastic.
Que viva Extremadura.
All right. Thank you, los Jarandillas.